A million or so times I've sat behind this microphone and I have banged the drum because we're a percussion show. We got about 12 or so drums we bang, and one of them has been, why don't we change the format of spring games? Or at least give the option to. That's an important word. Probably the most important word over the next 5 minutes on this show is option. There is no way I was letting this go. I was never letting this go because I know it makes sense. There are some ideas I have that are controversial. Some ideas I have, there truly are multiple ways to skin the cat, and therefore there's no right or wrong. And technically, I guess on this, there's not a right or wrong, but there is a more sound way. I'm not a guy who just loves change for change's sake, but I am a guy who, if I see an obvious, logical, progressive step that we can take to better something, I'm all for it, and I'm not going to leave it alone. Spring games have long needed an alteration. You have long needed the opportunity to, well, you know what? Don't listen to me. I'm going to let Hugh Freeze tell you himself, Colin, let's roll it.
The solution is allow us to scrimmage somebody on a day, another team. And I think everybody would get out of it exactly what they want. And if everybody's doing that, people will come see that. And you're decreasing your injury possibilities by 50%. And coaches are smart enough to control, we're not going to hit each other's quarterbacks. We practice that way. And if you want to put a blue jersey or a different jersey on somebody that's don't take to the ground, we can do that. And I just think it would be great for the sport. I think it would be awesome. NFL gets to scrimmage against others. High schools get to scrimmage against each others. And I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why we haven't gotten to that point where we can pull that off.
Yeah, me either, Coach, me either. So, you've heard me state basically the same opinion many, many times on this show. Crickets. So maybe now that college football coaches, head coaches, are banging the drum along with us, kind of like the Miami Sound Machine, got multiple percussionist up here, maybe finally we'll get some action on this. There's no downside. And the reason I know there's no downside is because of that key word I told you to remember. Option. 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 Not the offense. The concept that you have choices. It should be optional. So I went to Twitter today because I knew we were going to talk about this, and I knew this happened a couple of days ago, and I was storm chasing, so I have not talked to you about this yet, but I'm going to talk to you about it now. I went to Twitter and I said, have I missed it? Has there been anybody present an opposing viewpoint on this, or is everyone just in favor of it? Now, what I said, my exact words were, is anyone actually against having the option to schedule other teams for spring games? If so, why? I had some people say they don't want it, but no one gave me a legitimate pushback on having the option to have it. You've got the option to eat spaghetti every night of your life until you pass away at 45 from heart failure. I can say I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm not taking away your option to eat paschetti every night. Yes, that's the right way to pronounce it, at least where I'm from. Give them the option. That's all Hugh Freeze is talking about. That's all anyone's talking about. Give them the option. I had some folks say, oh, what about injuries, Josh? Well, by my math, you'd have 11 of your guys on the field at one time instead of 22. So that shoots down the notion of injuries being an increased risk. And now you're just a scare tactic, and quite frankly, a dumb one that you just haven't thought through. Remember the rule around here. Smart people can say dumb things. Dumb people rarely say smart things. Anyone that is fearing the risk of injury as being a key reason why we shouldn't be scheduling other teams, it's just smart people saying dumb things. Think it through. What is more risky, having 22 of your players on the field at one time or 11? I ran the numbers, and it turned out exactly how you think it would. So this is not change for change's sake. This is like legitimately improving the nature of the game. What business are we in? What business is Hugh Freeze in? It's not the football business. It's the entertainment business. Surprisingly, I've had arguments about this too. I know the game is football. I also know Hugh Freeze is paid what he's paid because people are entertained by it. So he's not in the coaching profession. True enough, his job title is coach, but he is a coach in the entertainment industry. I talk in a microphone in the entertainment industry. We have two totally different jobs, and mine wouldn't exist without his, and his would exist without mine, but it's all part of the entertainment industry. I say that for one of a number of benefits this would provide. It provides a spectacle and an event for fans, the lifeblood of your sport and your existence. There's a reason they have 90,000 of them in stadiums and multiple millions of them watching around the country every Saturday in the fall. And there's a reason that you were in palatial facilities. It's because there's a lot of money in this thing, because a lot of people care about it. Ultimately, you got to give them what they want, especially when it makes sense. It makes sense to do this. Number two, the other lifeblood of this sport, and earmuffs, kids, if you want to live in a utopia, is money. Money is a really big factor in all this. If I'm running ESPN or CBS or Fox and I want inventory and I listen to someone present the idea that, hey, maybe we'll turn spring games into kind of real games, I'm asking where I sign. And not only that, I'm asking, what do you need from me? I'm willing to subsidize it. Which leads me to my third point. You are not going to see Clemson versus Georgia in a spring game. What you may very well see, though, is Georgia versus Georgia State in a spring game. Hugh Freeze, later in that soundbite, we didn't play it, he advocated for Auburn playing Troy or Alabama playing UAB. You're not seeing that in the regular season. Anyone who understands the politics in the state of Alabama knows why. You're not going to see that in the regular season. But you will see him play Furman. You will see him play UT Chattanooga to the delight of nobody. Benefit number three here is we get to take that trash FCS weekend that you cram down people's throats in the fall and force people to pay season ticket prices for, and we can move it to the spring. And your TV partner has every motivation to subsidize the game. Or in other words, pay that FCS opponent to come to Bryant-Denny Stadium or Jordan-Hare Stadium and take home their paycheck just like they would in the fall and create something that doesn't exist. You see, you got 12 weeks in the fall, and there are going to be games on them no matter what. If I can remove a subpar product from one of those 12 dates in the fall and also simultaneously create a new event in the spring with that same team, paying them so they benefit the same way, you are filling your stadium to varying degrees. You've got concessions. You've got gate revenue. You've got a TV partner cutting you a check. The TV partner is also probably happy to pay $750,000 to your FCS tomato can to come into town. All due respect to tomatoes and FCS programs. But we get what it's about here, or at least I think we get what it's about. It lessens the amount of unpalatable FCS versus Power 5 games in the fall. We're looking right now on our screen. If you're listening on podcast, let me tell you the dark, dark truth. There are 55 FCS versus Power 5 matchups this fall. It's unacceptable. And yet, if I were an athletic director, I'd do it. I'd do it because it's a free win, or at least most times it is. There's nothing in the rules against it. And other folks are doing it. So why should I unfairly hamstring my program and force us to play tougher competition? Hey, just give the spring game option and then heavily penalize folks who still schedule FCS competition in the fall. A lot of benefits there, right? So in the nature of fairness, because we're nothing if not fair around here, I wanted to know what problems people could have with this, because it sounds like a win-win-win to me. And I asked you, therefore, who has a problem with this? Who thinks, and remember how I worded this for the second time, is there anyone against having the option to schedule real teams for spring games? I got not one bit of feedback that was valid, because any of the negatives I got back were just people telling me it's their preference that their school doesn't play another team in a spring game. That's cool. Like here were some reasons I got. Elite teams benefit more from intra-squatting because elite teams, Alabama would benefit more from their players playing against their own players rather than playing against Troy. Higher level of competition. Cool. Exercise your option not to have one. We may show too much, whatever in the world that means. Fine. Don't have one. We may get upset. Beta mentality. Fine. Don't have one. Well, smaller schools don't want to risk the injury. This was my favorite. Those smaller schools sure don't have a problem cashing that check and feeding those players to the wolves in the fall. This is totally irrelevant to the decision making. Once those kids sign the waiver and once they put on that where should I go? Because I've already used UT Chattanooga. Once they put on that jersey, all bets are off. Speaking of betting, I don't know if you'd be able to in a spring game. Yeah, if you don't like that, though, don't schedule one. Spring games, this is another bit of feedback I got. Spring games, those are for depth building and development, not for fans. Actually, the least amount of depth building and development happens in the spring game. If you want to see real development and depth building happen, actually you can't. If I could take you with me to some of these practices that sometimes we get to attend, we'll attend a couple of them next week, actually. And you could watch what happens every day at practice. You would realize they're scrimmaging every day. For at least portions of those practices, they're going good on good or 1 versus 2, 2 versus 1 every single day. The spring game does not resemble what real football looks like. The jerseys are there. It is 11 on 11. The field dimensions are the same. Otherwise, you want to see real scrimmage action, you can't. They're not going to show it to you. And I'm not sure how many people would sign up to exercise the option to have a real spring game. I just want it to be a possibility. Here's the way this would happen, by the way. Said that really quick. Here's the way this would happen. If I don't know how it becomes legal actually, but if it became legal, if it became the law of the land that you could do this, about 10 programs would do it the first year, about 60 of them would do it the next year. And then it would be the norm, and it would be a huge recruiting event, more so than it already is. It would be like a second homecoming. And then you'd be asked, if you weren't doing it, why aren't we doing this? And none of these reasons would be valid. So there's also, there's another one here. There was another reason someone gave me for not doing this. This one's valid. It's just part of the risk reward. If I'm a smaller school and I'm going to go play Pate State in their spring game and I'm going to get paid money to go do it, the risk is those folks over at Pate State may see a couple of players on my roster that could start for them. We got a post-spring portal window, you know. And so one of the risks for those FCS teams is they come in and they push back on you a little bit harder than you thought they would, so much so that, man, that slot receiver had what? 9 catches for 128 and 2 touchdowns against us. We've got a weakness. Where? Slot receiver. Hey, catch him in the parking lot. Get in his DMs. Tell him we may have a space for him here. That is a risk. It's already a risk, though. Quite frankly, I don't think any of your players are being discovered in the spring game. And if they do, that's why it's called risk reward. You're cashing a major paycheck. If you lose a player to the big boys, it's up to you to measure it. I'm not telling you it has to be one way or the other. It can be either or. You can choose to exercise the option or not. The option. It makes no sense not to have the option. That's all I'm saying. That's all I've ever said.